Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Vlog 26, Building Your Academic CV. And yes, this vlog is very much by request. Many of you have asked for this one, but the lovely Glory, whose thesis is currently under examination, is applying for a series of jobs and wants to make sure her CV is what her future employers would like. It's my pleasure to do so. The academic CV has some similarities with other CVs and resumes in the public and private sector, but it also has distinct differences, and each nation also has some specific differences, and we're going to talk about and through those today. The most important thing to recognise is that a CV is built over decades, not days. So don't get overwhelmed, don't get worried about gaps. The key with an academic CV is to start, and start today. I started my academic CV when I commenced my research master's qualification many years ago, and there's still little kernels of that very early CV in the current CV that I use today. What I do is I spend about 20 minutes every single week updating my CV, adding things, but also taking things out. As we all move through our career, some areas become incredibly relevant and other areas drop away. So keep it dynamic, keep it a living document. So the first point I'd make to you is that the academic CV is very different from the resume advice you will be getting on the internet. So we all see those sites that say, oh, a CV should be no more than 2 or 3 pages. That is absolute nonsense, and it's completely inappropriate for the academic sphere. And I'm going to tell you why through this vlog. The conventional CV, if you will, is short because it's presenting some very basic stuff. It's presenting your qualifications, utilitarian skills like hardware, software, and whether or not you have a driver's license. Now, that's fine. An academic CV is different, and let's start with what it is not. We're not remotely interested in basic skills. We are not interested in whether or not you can use the Microsoft Office suite. We assume you can. We assume you can use hardware and software. We assume you have a driver's license. We don't want that very straightforward stuff, okay? Keep that material out of a CV. Everything that is a relatively straightforward skill is not needed. Now, this is really crucial. Academic CVs are evidence-driven. They're not about opinion, they're not about subjectivity, they are about presenting fact. Selection committees go through your CV and they assess your capacity to conduct high-quality teaching, high-quality research, administration, leadership, and also community engagement. This is not opinion-based. Committees want evidence and they make their judgments on the basis of that evidence. So when we apply for an academic post, there are 2 bits to that. Firstly, there certainly is the CV, and that's what we're doing today, but there is a second part where you present what in some countries is called a covering letter that presents and addresses the selection criteria. Now, how that occurs varies enormously. The best way I can explain to you these differences is tell you something about the English system of application. In England, the emphasis is almost completely on the CV, and a very short cover letter is presented that often is about 2 or 3 pages. And a Vice-Chancellor in the United Kingdom once said to me, and this was great, he said, quote, "Tara, I have the intelligence to assess somebody's CV, and when I read that CV, I know whether or not they can do the job." So I think that's really important. In the UK in particular, the emphasis is on the CV. It's assumed the panel has expertise, they're looking at your evidence, and they will determine whether or not you're appropriate for the job. In Australia and Aotearoa New Zealand, the emphasis is a little bit different. The documents that are addressing the selection criteria are much longer, and indeed you are assessed very strongly on here is a selection criteria, and you write some paragraphs underneath that feed back to your CV. So the key is to make your analogue CV arch out into the digital environment. So make sure that you've got as many URLs as possible. So if you've got open access online journals, make sure the link is correct and it works and it's on your CV. Increasingly what I'm doing is digitizing a lot of my evidence. So for example, over 22 years, I've collected and moved around from house to house and country to country all my teaching evaluations. Now at the moment, I am digitizing all of those and loading them up to academia.edu under teaching evaluations as a heading. So this means in my CV, when I'm talking about and listing all the different subjects I've taught over all these decades, I can click directly to the evaluation so that the committee can see the evidence. So when I state in my cover letter, I'm an outstanding international educator, I can then click to evidence. We don't want hyperbole, we don't want opinion. If you're saying you're a great teacher, that committee needs to see the evidence. So do start to use platforms like academia.edu to house that evidence. So let's now get into the detailed elements of your CV. Now the first page, the full first page of your CV should be a biography. So this is prose. It's not a collection of bullet points, really important. So this is where you write prose, your qualifications, your outstanding teaching, your outstanding research, any community engagements and awards you've attained. So this is the 3 paragraphs that explain what a superstar you are. This is a very useful 3 paragraphs once you get it right. Yes, it's the first page of your CV, but also, of course, it can be cut, pasted and used for publishing and books and articles around the world. It's very useful to spend the time and get those 3 paragraphs right. So from that first page, we now move to the CV itself. So what I'm going to do is present the key headings for you. So basically with this vlog, if you're constructing it, go through the vlog with me, type these headings through and we'll start to fill them out, okay? So we're on the first page. We're on the first half of the first page. And of course we have your name, your date of birth if you so choose, your work address, your home address, your public or professional email, your personal email, phone numbers if you like, and also put in a couple of social media handles. Increasingly, guys and gals, the Twitter handle is being used in professional documents. Steve just got a book chapter published this week and the book arrived to our house. And interestingly, for the first time in the biography of the authors at the back of the book, all their Twitter handles were included. Really, really interesting. So do perhaps put just a couple social media handles there. Now that must be half a page and absolutely no more. Let's move to the second half of the first page. This is where we present your qualifications. Now these are in chronological order, starting with your most basic qualifications, so a certificate or a bachelor first, and moving through to your research masters, your professional doctorate, or your doctorate. Now, if you haven't completed your doctorate, and of course you guys haven't because that's why you're enrolled in this program, you need to specify not only the year of your completion, but the month of your completion. And I'm being really honest here. I'm trying to make you competitive in the working environment. And if you're going to get shortlisted, they need to know when that thesis is going to be submitted. So you need to put a date, you need to put a month, and you need to submit it at that time. So chronological order for your qualifications. The next section features the awards. So any awards or achievements that you've gained. So teaching awards, any citations for papers at conferences, for example, our 3-minute thesis finalists. Hello guys, you got a certificate for that. I'd be putting that achievement in and under that category. So awards and achievements. We then move to a very interesting section for a lot of you, and that is work experience. Now this will look very different for different candidates in this program. Let me explain why. So in work experience, you list the key jobs you have held. The average age of people who come into a doctoral program around the world these days is seen to be 36 years of age. So what that means is for a lot of you out there, hi Vicky, for a lot of you out there, you have already had a great career before you've come into a PhD program, right? So please feel free to talk about and list that work experience in the diversity of portfolios and functions you have held. You've had a life, you've had a career, put that material in. For our younger guys and gals, like I was when I was doing a master's and a PhD, still present work experience. And look, we all know what it's going to be like. You're going to be a tutor for somebody, a research assistant, you delivered this lecture for this course. That's absolutely fine. No one is going to be judging that. They just want to see the experience that you have. Can you lecture? Can you tutor? Can you write a bit of curriculum? Have you taught online? List that work experience. So depending on where you are in our sociology of candidates and candidatures, you know what to put in that work experience section. Don't judge yourself, just embody your best self in that section. We then move to research. Research is the big heading, and there are subheadings under it in very strict order. So what we have are books, refereed articles, non-refereed articles, so they would be perhaps notes for our science colleagues, there would be book reviews or introductions for our guys and gals in the humanities and social sciences, then move down to journalism and any other featured media that you think might be relevant. But start down books, book chapters, refereed articles. Cool. Now, what I do next is unusual, but I think it's perhaps even more important that you do it rather than I do it. And what I do is after those headings in my publishing section, I have two more. Publications currently under review and publications currently being written. And I put that in the CV. Now there's lots of reasons I do that. Firstly, it keeps my CV as a living document. So as I write something, it goes in there. As it goes out to referees, it goes into the next section. When it gets accepted, it goes up into the major categories. So there's this lovely movement and momentum between the categories. Also helps me check where all my publications are. The other reason we do this is it shows career trajectory. It also shows sustainability and momentum. Because people are hiring you not really for your past. They need to see that you can do it and what you've done, but they're hiring you for your future contribution to this institution. So you need to show you're not going to arrive at the new university and stop publishing. They need to see you're going to arrive, you're going to hit the ground running, and these articles are going to be published for your new institution. Okay, so after research, we then have teaching. So these are the subjects you have taught, online and offline. And remember, please link to hypertext reviews if you can. People need to see you are a high quality teacher. So teaching, straight under that is another form of teaching that is of course supervision. Now you won't have many of these at this point. Some of you have some great honours supervision, so good on you. So we'll start with the supervision, obviously doctoral supervision, which you won't have, research master's supervision, coursework supervision for masters, and honours. So list the supervision. The next heading you probably won't have much of yet, and maybe for 5 years, and that is examinations. So when you are conducting examinations for postgraduate qualifications, but also say you're brought in as an external examiner for an undergraduate program, which often happens, list that here. So those categories will be a bit empty for a while. Still put them on this master CV and you will populate them through your career. The next section some of you already have, and that is consultancies. So list all the public and the private firms for which you have worked. So if anybody has brought you in for expert advice, list them here. And of course this leads into the next big section, which is of course funding. Wow, is this important? So there are many ways you can head this. It can be funding, it can be grants and awards. But what I would particularly stress to you is do not think for one moment, oh, I don't have an ARC, therefore there's nothing to say in this category. The way Australian research funding is being configured at the moment, all sorts of funding from public and private organisations, industry partnerships, community partnerships, all sorts of funding really, really matters. And don't think any amount is too small. Put in the funding, show you have a desire and an ability to get grants and funding of all different kinds and list them all. And again, develop that through your career. Well done. You may also want, I certainly put one in, and I would advise you to as well, a media section. So that's if you've been on television, if you've been in a documentary, if newspapers have used your work, if magazines or online journals have used your research, then put in those links there. State, you're on radio, put that in with a date and a link, an online link if you can. Shows you've got good communication skills, shows you know how to disseminate research. Pretty good category. The next section moves to your conferences, presentations and posters. Now I want you to break these down into keynote addresses, conference presentations, conference panels, and then of course posters. And be absolutely precise where, when, put the date in, the exact date, and again if you can link to the site where it shows you actually presented, always good. The key section, next section for you, and we are nearing the end of the CV, I promise, and this section will float through your career depending where you end up. This section is administration, management and leadership. Now obviously at my state of seniority, this section tends to float a bit further to the front of the CV, but it can go about here for early career researchers. So if you've been a course coordinator, put that in. If you've been a member of a committee, put that in. If you've been a student rep, put that in. That's why whenever we do anything in the office, so we appoint anybody or have any process, we always ask a student if they'd like to participate. Yes, it's great for us because we care about you and we need to know what you think, but also we're giving you an opportunity to add something to your CV, and that's very important to us as well. So list those administrative functions. This won't be a big part of an early career researcher's CV, but just start to fill it out and show what the North Americans call a commitment to service. Okay, if possible, have a professional development section. This also tends to float, but again tends to be at the end of a CV. What we're trying to show, and what universities are looking for, is that you're not sitting on your laurels, that you are interested in learning new skills and abilities in teaching and research. So all the seminars you've done with us as part of the Office of Graduate Research, list them here. They're needing to see that you're an outward scholar and you're a lifelong learner. You love to learn. You're not stuck in your ways. So list that professional development work. The final bit of your CV is the referees. Important in so many ways. I could do a whole vlog on referees, and I might do at some point. But you need to list at least three. Now remember, no personal references are to be used here. No one cares if you're a good person, so don't use your mum, don't use your aunt, don't use a family friend. Personal referees not needed. The committee wants information about you as a scholar. Okay, so this means, particularly at this period of your career, your PhD supervisor will be a referee. Now, they may be a referee for you through the entirety of your career. For example, my wonderful beloved husband, Steve, his PhD supervisor is still a referee for him all those years later, and he's a wonderful human being and they get on tremendously, so that's fantastic. Needless to say, in my case, my PhD supervisor wasn't used as a referee even like 3 days after I finished the PhD. So they will be as a referee for you for a while, but at a certain point in your career, they will drop away, okay? Also importantly, there needs to be somebody there who can comment on you as a teacher. So if you've been a tutor for someone and they've been the course coordinator, please list them as a referee so that they can offer commentary about you as a teacher. Lots of other options are available for you ahead of school. I, of course, could be a referee for you. That's why I've spent all this time getting to know you all. Because particularly in the North American system, the Dean of Graduate Students or Graduate Research often is a referee. So remember, I'm always available. Get to know me, talk to me. I mean, a lot of you I know incredibly well, and I can be a referee for you for the next 30 years. So remember that. Also, of course, examiners. There is a point if you've actually got a very famous examiner and they really loved your PhD, that for a period, they can actually be a referee. So Steve and I have often been referees for people applying for work, and we've offered commentary about the PhD and future publishing trajectories. So that's also an option for you. Another reason to pick a pretty famous examiner if you can. So at this point, you may not have information in all these categories. Please don't be stressed, don't be worried about the gaps. As I said, CVs develop over decades. But also please remember that they are long. Don't let anybody say, oh, look, anything over 3 or 4 pages. That is nonsense. Remember, I'm assessing on a daily basis PhD examiners' CVs, okay? Top of the field. And the shortest CV I've seen is 30 pages, and the longest CV I've seen is 80 pages. That 80-page CV belonged to a scholar that actually has been called one of the 50 most important scholars of the 20th century. So there he is. I won't say who he is, but he is a legendary human being. He's also a good friend of mine. But here's an 80-page CV. No apologies, no weirdness. My CV is 62 pages in length. I asked Steve last night before I was delivering this vlog to you this morning, Steve, how long is your CV now? And interestingly, his is 62 pages as well. So, important. Don't worry about the length. Fill out the categories. As you start to have achievements, put them in the CV, and the lesser achievements can drop away. So the final little part of this vlog, I just want to offer some quick and dirty tips of things to really avoid, things that freak selection committees out and freak me out when I see it. So number 1, make sure that your CV is scannable. So make it clean, make the fonts nice to read, make everything very interesting, make sure you can move through it at a flick. So as an examiner, an assessor, we are looking for a category. So I need to find research, I need to be able to flick through the CV quickly and find research. So make it scannable. Very important. Secondly, write the CV long and adapt it for particular jobs. So what I'm suggesting you do is have this mega CV that has your entire life and indeed your future trajectories in it as well. And then as you are applying for particular jobs at Monash or La Trobe or Waikato, that you're then able to say, right, so this is the CV for Waikato. Cut and make it fit for the job that you are applying for. Every job is different and the emphasis will be different. 3, avoid institution-specific language. So please don't use subject or unit or course codes when you're talking about your teaching. That's Flinders-specific. Don't use acronyms. Be very clear. What are they after? They want to see what subjects you've taught. Provide the title of the subject. Don't provide the course code. Right. 4, be consistent with your referencing. So referencing is the punctuation of a CV. Make sure you pick a style and it's consistent throughout and forever. 5, make sure that you've got page numbers. Now this seems really basic, but oh my goodness me, about half the CVs I look at don't have page numbers. Please put page numbers. Very easy to fix. As a header, have your name. As a footer, have a page number. So at any particular point, a reader knows where they are at. 6, don't overuse bold fonts. So what I'd advise with a CV, pick 2 fonts. As wonderful Karen in our office knows, I'm a bit obsessed by Impact. I love Impact as a font for headings, and I just use Times Roman for the detail. Pick 2 fonts and use it in that way to create evidence and scannability. Please don't overuse bold. I read a CV a couple of weeks ago that was like every sentence had a sort of bolded phrase, and you're going, really, don't use bold. 7, oh wow, remove hyperbole. Now, academic CVs don't feature stuff like I'm passionate about or I'm really enthusiastic about. You know, this is a bit Kath and Kim. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Don't do that stuff in an academic CV. This is not a corporate CV where you go, I'm fantastic, I'm enthusiastic, I'm passionate, I'm a go-getter. Really, guys, this is evidence-driven. This is about what you've done, not the believe and achieve stuff, okay? 8, do not list generic skills, goals, or aspirations. This is an academic CV, it's not an episode of Oprah. So your hopes and your dreams and your aspirations, again, are really not relevant. Don't do it. 9, another shocker, don't use a photograph. Every now and again, about 1 CV in 20 probably that I see, has a photograph of the person on the top. And tragically, every single one of these I see is a woman. Wow. So how you look is completely irrelevant to getting an academic post. We're simply interested in you as an academic. Are you a great writer? Are you an outstanding teacher? How you look is not important. Don't use a photo. Also, by the way, don't list hobbies and stuff either. You know, people that go, oh, look, I really like badminton. I like cats. I like going to the gym. Again, we don't care. We don't care whether or not you play badminton. We don't care if you grow organic vegetables. Really don't care. Academic CV, keep it focused on task. 10, really important one. I was talking about this with Vicky last week. Account for the gaps. So what we've got to try and do is every year of your career that you have an achievement, keep that momentum going, particularly with regard to publications. I have publications from every single year since 1993. I've prided myself in that so that it shows no matter how busy I am, no matter what leadership role I have, I keep reading and writing and thinking and publishing, and that means a lot to me. So I have that momentum each year. Important for you, try and do the same. And if you do have a gap, recognise that you're going to have to explain that gap. So talk about why it's happened. So I hope this session has been useful, and all I'd say to your team is start. I'm aware that when we're talking about academic CVs, it can get incredibly overwhelming really, really quickly because you focus on what you don't have rather than what you do. And that's not my intention. All I've done is present all the headings that you'll use through the entirety of your career. And now our task, day at a time, is start to populate those headings. So start that CV today and improve on it tomorrow. As always, from this very, very early morning vlog, I wish you love, light and peace. Tea out.